Yes, people, Manscaped is back, but this time it's not for below the belt grooming. Manscaped brings to you the Beard Hedger, the best product on the market when it comes to beard trimmers. The Beard Hedger is unique due to its number of radiant settings. As someone who's purchased this, I won't turn to any other beard trimmer. Check it out for yourself at manscaped.com. And don't forget to use code FTM20 to get 20% off of this product.
Morning. Big up to every single one of you. Hope you're doing well. 12th man's back. Guna to Guna is back this morning at 11. I say 11. It's my fault. It's a little bit over 11 o'clock, but big up to every single one of you. Hope you're all well. Please make sure that you have hit the like button and that you've hit subscribe. Please make sure the notification bells are on. We're 88 away from 26k. 88 people to hit subscribe today, and we hit 26k together. Big up to every single one of you that's already subscribed and those that are live in the chat. Those of you as well that are watching, of course, on catch up and on audio. And do me a favor, show Manscaped some love. Link is in the description. Link is in the pinned comments right now. Get yourself some beard hedgers for Christmas. It is the Beard Hedger. It's 20% off. If you get any problems and you can't use that link, then just put FTM20 in the code section and you'll get 20% off of the Beard Hedger. Look, Chris Hudson was supposed to be with me today. He texted me this morning. Don't think he's well enough to jump on. So I thought, let's find a super sub. And I've got an absolutely Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Leandro Trossard-esque super sub. It's Tom Canton, mate. How you doing, bro?
It's good, mate. I was lucky I was out during day off, so it was just a free time at 11 o'clock. Was just chilling, watching some telly, and I was like, yeah, God, I'll jump on with Dan and have a chat.
Bro, it's rare. It's rare that you are, free and available like that. But I was very pleased when you said you could jump on. Otherwise, it'd just be me. And as much as I'm sure people do like talking to me, sometimes I prefer bouncing off someone. It does get hard on this channel sometimes, actually, when I'm doing Arsenal stuff, because most of my panels on Football's 12th Man are all sorts of fans. But look, big up to every single one of you. Big up to DG Raid as well. Deluded. I hope you're well, my friend. Make sure everyone is supporting Deluded Gunner. And look, Tom, there's a lot to talk about today because I feel like there's quite a lot of topics around Arsenal at the moment in relation to how we've started the season, our injury problems, the refereeing, the red cards, the discipline issues, the pressure on Mikel Arteta. And I'm actually starting streams at the moment thinking, where the hell do we start? That there's so much being thrown at us. So I want to get your thoughts on the latest, which of course is the Liverpool game, first of all. Then we'll go into some of the news about some of our injuries, because there is some boosts today, we believe anyway, that could make Arsenal fans a little bit less worried. And there's also some transfer news as well. So let's start on the latest from the weekend. Look, I went to the game. I know that you were there as well. Saw you after the game, and that was always a pleasure. I must admit, I think I went through all the emotions, bruv, from start to finish. And I think with this one, the reason I was so emotional to start with before it even kicked off was because of the team news. Now, when the team news come out, I'm not going to lie to you, I went from being a little bit deflated to a little bit like, oh, all right, go on then. My confidence just went up because I just felt like with Saka and Timber, we absolutely had to start them if they were fit. So I was really pleased that we did that. As the game went on, I thought Mikel Arteta was spot on. We came out flying, and I thought we did. I thought we were electric in the first half. At half-time, you always feel like a little bit of confidence when you're winning the game. But in the second half, I do feel like we were a little bit too negative and didn't really quite go for the kill when perhaps we smelt a little bit of blood. The substitutes I thought were a little bit late, but again, we're kind of worry at the moment with our bench because we're kind of bare bones in certain positions. Ending the game with the back four that we did wasn't really ideal. Do you come away from that with all the emotions of, wow, we've taken a point. Oh dear, we've only taken a point. Or, okay, let's just get out of there. Because I think everybody's kind of felt like a little bit different throughout this game, man. So how did you see it, bro?
Yeah, I was gutted, at full time, because I really felt like from what I'd watched, Arsenal were worthy of 3 on the day and were the better sides in terms of kind of the matchup and the context of how the game, played out. This is a Liverpool side that was, barring Alisson and Jota, who they've got 2 very, very good replacements for in terms of Kelleher and Nunez as well. That's 100 million euros worth of centre forward coming in for Jota up top.
Yeah.
I expected, and it wasn't exactly unsurprising to see that they were favourites going into this game because of what Arsenal had recently been in terms of form, and also because of not having Ødegaard. Because even though Saka and Timber were there, they were rushed back. They weren't fully fit, and that was evident by the fact they both came off in the second half. And with the game ending with a back four of Partey, White, Kivior, and Miles Lewis-Skelly, you're sitting there and thinking, goodness me, like 2-2, you look at that and say it's a good result. But I still felt like it wasn't, because, we took the lead twice in this game. We created a number of really good opportunities throughout it. And the 2 goals that they scored are stoppable. And I know that the second goal they score it comes on the side with both Lewis-Skelly and Kivior, who, are decent, but I mean, Kivior's obviously got his limitations. Miles Lewis-Skelly is a young player. To go up against Salah is going to be tough. But, if it was Calafiori and Gabriel there, I would have been confident that goal wouldn't have been conceded. So that's frustrating. But also the injustices that happened throughout the game because of the refereeing in it as well, which, I'm never the biggest fan of kind of, pointing the finger at the ref, because I want to be able to, I always say the words that I want Arsenal to take the game out of the hands of the referee.
Facts.
I felt like Van Dijk could have been sent off within the first 10 minutes, stamped down on Havertz. I've watched it back like 3 times. No one's really picking up on the second kick out isn't a kick out. Like, he stamps down on Havertz's left foot. I've watched it on several angles now, and someone else sent me another angle of it yesterday that I was like, I don't really get how VAR's not got more involved in this. Maybe just because of the time it happened in the game being so early. Maybe because of who it is, being Van Dijk, maybe because it's against Arsenal, whatever. So I was surprised by that one. Obviously, the 5 fouls that Luis Diaz committed on top of kicking the ball away, going unpunished, is mad. I don't think Martinelli was fouled in the box by Konate. I don't think that was a penalty for me. I think Konate gets the ball. So I wasn't concerned by that decision. And obviously, at the end with the goal that wasn't a goal, I think what Anthony Taylor blows up for is ludicrous. That's not a foul by Kivior. I think there are things later on in the play that could be, brought up. The Havertz potential handball, I think it's a bit close for me to be given this handball, but I think Havertz does potentially foul Alexander-Arnold, in the build-up to Jesus eventually knocking in. But, the whistle's gone at that point. We don't know how that would have played out. We don't know what VAR would have said. So it's hard. But the fact that the whistle was blown there, and then right in the last few seconds to see a blatant corner, not given, and a goal kick be given to Liverpool as well, I thought was just the perfect sum up of the day, kind of how the game was it just wasn't meant to be for Arsenal. And despite all our limitations and how we played, I was happy with the performance. I was gutted with the defending and annoyed with the mistakes and with the injustices. But 2-2, I think I'd just probably have to sit back and take it.
Yeah, look, you summed up pretty well there, Tom, and look, that's why I get you on, right? Because you're happy to give your opinions. I'll give mine on the 3 incidents, right? I agreed with you. I didn't believe that Konate won the ball cleanly. I think he took the man, but he did touch the ball. So I can understand why, when that's looked at, people are thinking, yeah, he's won the ball. I do think he's gone through the player, though, so that's kind of more 50-50 than absolutely not. The Luis Diaz one, kicking the ball away, I do not understand why when we do it, we get a yellow card, and when he does it, he gets away with it. That's not corruption. That's just shit, inconsistent refereeing, in my opinion, right? A lot of people believe there's conspiracies and corruption. I don't think that is the case.
I don't want to believe that either.
No, I don't want to believe that. No. And look, I understand why Arsenal fans look that way. 1, I think they're emotional because they're frustrated they haven't won the game. 2, they're even more annoyed because the inconsistencies. And that's what the key is here, is there's an inconsistency of decision making. The problem you've got is when you look at those decisions and you see Ollie Watkins with the ball going out, and you think back to St James's Park last year, you see Gabriel getting fouled at St James's Park last year, and then Kivior, that's clearly a foul, but Gabriel's one isn't. I don't get that. Don't understand why there's so many incidences of kicking balls away when people are just allowed to and we're not allowed to. We saw João Pedro smash the ball against Brighton. Nothing happens. Declan Rice brushes it. Yellow card sent off. We saw Luis Diaz kick the ball away quite hard. I mean, it's just the thing. We're talking about how they're becoming lenient on it now. Well, it seems that they've sent enough Arsenal players off, so now be lenient. So I can understand why some of the rival fans do point the fingers. What I'm not using it as an excuse as to why we don't win the game. You can definitely talk about how it's frustrating and how, you're annoyed by the lack of inconsistency. But what does annoy me is that you do get a lot of the fan base that take it too far and start to say that the reason Arsenal aren't going to win the league is because referees don't want them to. Or the referees are actually, the PGMOL have charged Man City 1-1 5 times. So it's not like they're wanting Man City to win the league at the moment, that's for sure. So look, I don't really understand what that is. But I will lastly say this. There is a TV show with this guy on it, which is called a Ref Watch. And if anyone has not seen this, then please do go and have a laugh at it, because it is the most pointless segment of Sky Sports News you'll ever see in your life. It is about as pointless as the equivalence of Mike Dean sitting there on Sucker Saturday watching the games for no apparent reason whatsoever, in just another way in which they can stick up for their buddies, because that is all these people do. There is no decision making from the referee that is the expert in Dermot O'Gallagher or Mike Dean that gives me any understanding of why the hell they're on there, Tom. Now, I don't know if you saw yesterday, but it was an embarrassment from the lad. He sat there and basically said, yeah, could have been, could have not really sure, 50-50 really, seen them give them, seen them not. I could do that, Tom. I could go on there and say, I used to referee Sunday League, and I think the referee, he could have given that, and maybe some other refs that they might not have given that. What is the actual point of him being on there? So don't understand that decision whatsoever. We've seen Howard Webb come on and make himself look like a bit of a fool, if I'm honest with you. And it begs the question, Tom, what happens then? Because do we just stick with this and go, right, okay, we can't rely on the referees, we know that anyway, but they're not going to get any better? Because I can't name more than 3 referees in my whole lifetime of it watching football that I actually rate, other than potentially Jeff Winter, Mark Housey and Kalina. I'm struggling after that. There's the other one, Kim, what's his name, from abroad, who was good as well. But do we need to start bringing in some of the ones abroad now, or what? Because this is getting a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is getting it's getting very irritating. I mean, when Dermot Gallagher was asked whether he thought that the Kivior one was a foul, and he turned around and said that, well, if he gives it, it's a foul. If he doesn't give it, and they just kind of stayed silent, didn't it? It's like, why are you there? Like, what's the point of you being there and doing this? And like, I remember when Dale Johnson at ESPN started doing his VAR articles, and I appreciated them at first when they first started coming out, and I was reading them and I was quite enjoying the content. And then gradually, as it's gone on, I just feel like he just starts to just kind of explain the decisions, whether they're right or wrong a lot of the time. Sometimes, to be fair to him, he does point out when things he thinks aren't given correctly, but there are some very glaring ones that either are omitted. The Kivior one was omitted from this week's article. I know it's a VAR specific one, but obviously you could talk about the fact that VAR wouldn't get involved because the ref's whistle was gone, etc. You could talk about the corner that wasn't given, and overall kind of make a comment. It's got to the point now, Dan, where I've done my own. Yesterday, I wrote my own review of the officiating in the Arsenal game on FL, because I was just like, if you want a job done, do it yourself. So I wrote a piece about it, just reviewing all of them, including the corner, including the Kivior challenge. I talked about the length it took to give Miko Moreno's goal, which I could see was, Harry Simi was sitting behind me doing the commentary at BBC Radio London. And he first thought, I'm not sure it's onside. And I said, mate, I just showed him the screen. I was like, look at Van Dijk's foot. He's miles on. He's miles onside. I know it wasn't miles, but it was close. But you could clearly see he was onside with Van Dijk's foot and where that was. So
you can understand why maybe there was a pause, but it doesn't take 4 minutes.
No, it doesn't. It didn't take that long. And obviously it's another reason why semi-automatic offsides need to really hurry up and get into the sides. But it's incredibly frustrating at the moment. I don't think there's corruption. I'm not that way inclined. I lean towards them just being bad. I think they're just inconsistent. They're awful. I know there's a lot of decent analysis from people that raise a lot of interesting evidence, especially with kind of like Michael Oliver being paid paid to referee a game in the Middle East and stuff like that, which I don't think is okay. I also think that referees being analysts on Sky Sports and TNT is not a good thing. We don't need to hear those referees explain away decisions. We can come up with our own, and I think people can have their own opinions on that. And we know from what Mike Dean has already admitted to, he said things about, that he's not sent a referee to the screen because it's his mate and he thinks he's going to be under pressure. It's ridiculous, some of the things. Then the fact that they've kept their positions and they're still relied upon to give reliable information about these calls, I still find mad. So, and the more podcasts that Howard Webb goes on, it just, again, increases their profile. We're spending a lot of time here talking about them. Referees, the best referees in the world, you don't speak about. And this season in the European competitions, I've been very impressed by Clement Turpin, who we had for the PSG game, I think it was. And I think it was Bastien, who we had for the Shakhtar game. I thought they were both excellent in those two games, the way those games were officiated. So I think that, unfortunately, the way it's going is it just seems that there's so much about the profile and celeb status of refs that needs to change.
Look, you've said a lot that I agree with. My opinion on the Kivior one is that it's not a foul. Soboslai's actually done more of a Harry Kane where he does the bend over.
Yeah, I agree.
Allow him.
Yeah.
Soboslai's not complained once. None of the Liverpool fans, in fact, players have complained once. People have said that Trent was pushed, let's be real, it's very, very soft nowadays, what I'm seeing. I think the game has gone completely soft, if I'm honest, if we're giving fouls for stuff like that. And if you're not giving that foul, then you've got to give the Canate one on Martinelli, which me and you both said is quite soft. So if you're going to give the Kivior one, you've got to give that one. It is an absolute madness what we're seeing in terms of the consistency. Look, I watched the Bolton Arsenal game at the Emirates, and obviously there's no VAR. There was 6 goals, and you could celebrate every single goal knowing that it was going to be in because there was no review, there was no VAR. It was so much more enjoyable, mate. And we went mental at that 2-1. You heard it in the stadium at how mad it was, right? And we're waiting around for what was close to 5 minutes, easily close to 5 minutes. It wasn't quite that long, but it was definitely getting towards that. Wondering what's happening here. And I'm thinking, well, if it's that tight, what the hell are that? Just give the goal. If it's
you've given it on field, yeah, like it's mad. It's mad. Yeah,
it's gone crazy. Maybe they need to bring in this automated system, but for me, it was still. I just don't have any faith in whatever they bring in. I don't have any faith in them using it. I mean, when you zoom in on the actual VAR, he's playing FPL, the geezer.
Oh, to be fair, I think that's been clarified now.
Oh, God. Was that not the case?
No, it's not. I think it's important that's pointed out. Again, it's like, because if that was the case, it's a really serious breach of protocol. If that's the case, I'm just trying to find where it was said. But Dale Johnson did, to be fair. It's like a specific app on a phone that they use in the VAR
it looked like
room.
It though, didn't it?
It does, because it's a Premier League branded, I think, program. So it uses the same kind of the same aesthetic. Like the VAR screens use the same aesthetic as like the fantasy app. So yeah. I'll see if I can find it in a bit, but
no worries, mate.
Yeah,
well, look, I do want to get that right. I don't want to, because I was one who was shown it, and everybody was.
It's called. This is the Premier League Match Manager app, not Fantasy Premier League. There are no personal devices in the VAR hub. It was clarified.
Okay, cool. Well, look, I've got to say, there's a lot that needs clearing up with that then, because that was outroar. And to be fair, if that was the case and they were playing FPL, that is a disgrace. That is a disgrace. So, so I'm glad you've cleared that one up, mate. Look, let's get to the game, because I don't like to talk about the referees for this long, but we have done, and I think it's fair. I was quite impressed in parts. Did you think Arteta could have been a little bit more attack-minded when going 1-0 and 2-1 up, Tom? Because I had a discussion on my show last night, or was a couple of shows I did yesterday. Some of the rival fans were a bit disappointed that Mikel Arteta did a little bit of a Gareth Southgate when going 1-0 up, and kind of got a little bit negative and thought that could smell blood. Arsenal were battering Liverpool, and the scoreline would be very disappointing if they were Arsenal fans, and they'd be quite disappointed with Arteta's tactics of 1-0, let's chill out, 2-1, let's chill out. Why couldn't it have gone to 2-0 or 3-1 is kind of my question.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's difficult. I mean, it was only 9 minutes, wasn't it, between Saka scoring and Van Dijk equalising. Naturally, the way that games kind of flow is that especially in these big games, if you're the away team and you go to a different ground, naturally there's a little bit more reserve sometimes in these title deciders. It happens with City at Liverpool, happens with us at Anfield. Naturally, the home side have more of an emphasis. And when you go 1-0 up, that changes the emphasis of the opposition side, because they need to then attack more. So naturally, they are going to attack more. And that 9 minutes did then lend itself to seeing them find that equaliser. And then Arsenal again after the equaliser went in. I mean, Liverpool fans might argue that should they have gone more attacking after they found the equaliser, or instead Arsenal regained, a lot more of the handle on it and went for the second goal, and eventually they got it just before half time. But it was after half time, I think, where maybe that question mark about how Arsenal approached it does come into it. That said, it's only 9 minutes into the first half that we lose Gabriel. And when you lose Gabriel, there's a level of nervousness, I think, that does start to, creep into the back line. At that point as well, you have to remember that you've started two players in Saka and Timber who are not fully fit, who do not have the same levels of energy that they had at the beginning of the game as they do then going into the second half. And Saka was near invisible in the second half, to be honest. I think he was really only there for being an outlet to create a moment of magic, if indeed he was going to be, because I don't think he had the legs to be able to do. That's why he came off. We could have made a change earlier.
By the way, in the first half, though, wasn't he?
Unbelievable! That shows how much we've missed. What we've missed of Saka in games against the likes of Bournemouth. If we'd have had him for those games, it would have been so very different. So, yes, you could argue that Arsenal maybe were too defensive at times, but I think that's very easily explained away. I mean, just after Gabriel came off, I think it was just less than 10 minutes later, they bring off McAllister, Robertson and Diaz and bring on Gakpo, Tsimikas and Szoboszlai. I mean, you've brought in an entirely new left-hand side, so, and that's the depth that they've got available to them, right now after years of their building. And, I mean, you think about when Jurgen Klopp came into Liverpool, this is what, and Arne Slot's the same. Both Arne Slot and Jurgen Klopp inherited Liverpool teams that had competed for titles, before their arrival. And so they've been able to have a building of their squads that have allowed them to have such great depth. Whereas Arteta, when he's coming at Arsenal, you've ripped up the floorboards, you've replaced it all, and still 5 years down the line, we've still got to do more. We've still got to do more work in the market, and hopefully that will happen. 2025 I've always been saying, as I've come on here a lot of times, Dan, as you'll know, and say 2025 I've always been seen as a big year in terms of market and challenge for Arsenal. So, yeah, let's wait and see.
No, big up to you, man. Suze, big up to you as well, man. Says big up Dan and Tom. Hit the like and subscribe, people. Let's get to 26k today. We are only around 80. I've got to check it, but we're around about 80 off of 26k. Come on, I always get excited by this point. I'm normally like and subscribe, people. Come on, and then when it gets that close, I'm like, come on. You can do this, people. Just dropping this here to acknowledge the work of Dan in the community. Big up to yourself, man, and people like yourself, regular super chatters, regular listeners, mean the world. So thank you so much. If you can hit the like and subscribe button, it would mean a lot today, because we are that close, people, to get into 26k, which is another milestone. So let's make sure that we do that. 86 of you need to hit the like button. So subscribe button, should I say, or like and subscribe. Look, Tom, I will say this. I actually wasn't that stunned by Liverpool. I've got to be honest with you. I looked at them and thought they're a good side. I mean, they're what I expected them to be. A lot of people have said that they look outstanding and they look like they're going to be going for the title. I agree with the last bit. I think they could go for the title, but I already did. I didn't see Arne Slot coming in and them getting sixth, like some people thought, or fifth, or whatever it was. I never, ever saw that. I will say this, though. I didn't think that, like we could have gone for the kill, that they went for the kill either. When you're lining up with Partey, Ben White, Kivior and Lewis Skelly, and you don't win the game, I'd be disappointed if that was me. Let's be real. And I said this to Roms. Big up to Roms. If it was Anfield, right, and I said to you, Tom, we've got Liverpool tomorrow at Anfield, you go, oh, horrible. We all know, right? But if I said, hang on a minute, Tom, they've got Trent out, they've got Salah out, they've got McAllister out, and they've got Van Dijk out, you might go, all right then, I fancy us now. And that's what we had. So, as a Liverpool fan, I'd be leaving the Emirates thinking we should have won that game with the players that were there for the taking. So, I think we definitely need to look at ourselves from a positive light to think that actually we did manage to get through that period of time. I also don't remember, I don't want to make excuses, but it's true. I don't remember a fixture list like this. This has been brutal, Tom. This has been probably the most brutal it's been in a long time. On top of the fact that we've got a new format now in the Champions League, which seems a lot harder, in my opinion. A lot of people are preferring it, but I think it's harder than the group stage. You've basically got to have the equivalence of winning your group to go through and be guaranteed it. Otherwise, you're in a playoff, right? So that's quite difficult. We've already been away to Villa. We've been away to Spurs. We've been away to City. On a way to Atalanta, and then we've had the nice international break, losing more players, and then we've come back to Liverpool, and then 4 away games. When was the last time we played 4 away games? We've got coming up, Newcastle coming up, Inter Milan coming up, and Chelsea coming up. Now, that's hard enough, but when they're all away from home, that is brutal. So I look at it and think once we get through this period of time, we then have easier run. Hopefully, not that it's ever easy, but you get my drift. We need to get away from this with a Chelsea and Newcastle victory, Tom. And if we do that, I honestly still think there's a great chance. So where does this leave you at the moment, being 5 points behind Liverpool and 6 behind City? Have I got that right, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, 4 behind
4 and 5.
Liverpool, 5 behind City. Yeah, I think you raised good points. Obviously, the start of this season has been far tougher than the start of last season. We've played games that we had previously, lost to. You think about Villa away that we dropped points in. That was a pretty big game. We think about, games that Newcastle coming up next is a game that we lost last year, and interestingly, it actually falls on the exact same weekend, date-wise, as it did last season. So it gives you a really good kind of view of how we're comparing points-wise. And if Arsenal have dropped 9 points so far this season, and if they beat Newcastle this coming weekend, they will be on the same amount of points dropped at the same date compared to last season, despite having a far tougher beginning to the campaign and despite having already played both Liverpool and City, which they hadn't have done at the same point last season, despite going to Spurs and Villa, which they hadn't done at the same point last season, despite having these extended Champions League games and the added, element of that they haven't had last season, having already beaten PSG, of course, in this first round of the league phase. So this idea that, Arsenal are, there's loads of question marks. If we lose against Newcastle, then absolutely there's a big, big elephant in the room about where Arsenal are. If you don't beat either of Chelsea or Newcastle, it's very hard to see Arsenal being at that point still in the race with, they'd be clinging on and relying on some big slip-ups and relying on a huge similar second half of the season that we had last season. But if we don't beat Chelsea and Newcastle, it does become far difficult. But I think this context that Arsenal are somehow not in this, despite the fact that we would have only dropped the same amount of points in a season that people, looked at as a 90-point campaign last time, is a little bit short of the reality.
Look, we move into a period of fixtures which are tough, and I do kind of feel that we need to win all 4, Tom, and that is mad. If we were to drop any points, I'd say it'll be at the San Siro in the Champions League because I still feel that we can get through. But we have to beat Preston because it's a cup game, and I want to go all the way in that. We have to beat Chelsea and Newcastle if we want to catch up with Liverpool and City because I do think they'll both drop points still. I just don't know how many it'll be. So I kind of feel like we've got to try and keep as many players fit as we can. Now, there is a little bit, I've put there's a triple injury boost. I don't quite know the full extent of what that looks like, but I know you do. So I was going to come to you individually on these 3 players. We saw at the weekend Timber coming off with what I thought looked like fatigue and cramp, if I'm honest with you. It just didn't look 100% fit in the end. I thought he was one of our best players, bruv. I thought he locked up Salah. And unfortunately, when he come off, that was when they found some space down that right-hand side. And Núñez deserves a lot of credit for that, by the way, as well. Look, what we're saying on him, is that a player that we expect to see maybe not start against Preston, but potentially be fit for Newcastle?
Yeah, hopefully. I'll be shocked if he's in the team against Preston, to be honest. I don't think fans should be discouraged if they don't see him against Preston. I sincerely hope that he is available for Newcastle because he's probably our best defensive fullback in terms of his ability defensively. And he gives you a lot still going forwards. As well, technically, he's very, very good. And so I think that for that reason, you look at what options we've got. And when you lose Timber, the fact that they rushed, and they did rush him, like he was definitely rushed to be back for this game because the idea of somebody else going up against Salah from minute 0 was, is a nightmare scenario. So he was rushed back. He probably played more minutes than he should have done. There was actually, I remember watching him, the cameras don't give you that angle unless you're in the ground, but you're watching him just before he comes off for a good few minutes. He needed to come on, but we couldn't get the ball off the pitch to be able to make the substitution. So Miles Lewis-Skelly's ready and waiting to come on, and we can't make the change because the ball won't go out of the field, and Timber's still having to kind of run up and down the touchline despite being spent at this point. It will be tightness. It'll be muscular tightness that obviously does it at fatigue at that level. So, yeah, give him a week's rest, and then hopefully he can come back and play again against Newcastle. So keep fingers crossed.
What about Gabriel? Because he came off with what looked like a knee injury. It didn't look horrendous, but because he was walking off. But you never know with these injuries, man. What are you telling me?
Yeah, I think that It's difficult to know, obviously, with knee injuries. They're hard. Mikel Arteta's got a press conference this afternoon at 3:30, so we'll learn more about the details of that if he decides to give us any information, which is always a bit of a toss up anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's one of those really serious knee injuries. Hopefully, it's only kind of precautionary. Might have just jarred it. So yeah, I think that there's question marks about how serious it is that will be answered, and we'll get more clarity on that when Arteta speaks later.
Now the big one, Martin Ødegaard. What's happening here, my bro? Because I know there's a lot of people that are like really, really needing him back, and I'm one of them. I think we've missed him. I've got to say this. I think we have. I know we haven't missed him results wise because we've got through a period without him. But I think there's no doubting that we miss his creativity, his vision, his weight of pass, his leadership qualities, his press. I think we're missing him now. And I think Trossard's done a great job. And I love Ethan Manieri coming on. But it's time to get him back now, man. I heard some rumours that we might be talking about him getting back on the grass, man. So what can you tell me, bro?
Yeah, Sammy Montbell, the Mail, did this report this week, which is really good, is that it seems that he's closing in on a return to getting outside, to, really building up the strength in the ankle by working out on the grass as well, which is really going to be a massive boost. The Norwegian coach came out recently and said that they're expecting him to be part of the squad for the next international break, which is, mid-November, early to mid-November. So that's good news as well. It's a bit of a catch because it means he'll play again for Norway, which is annoying, obviously. And we hope that his minutes are monitored and they're careful with that. But I think it's been so blatantly obvious how much we've missed Martin Ødegaard. You don't really know what you've got until it's gone, as the famous saying goes. And I know there's been some question marks. I think there was even times, at the start of the season when we were without him and we were still winning at Spurs narrowly. We were, nearly beating City. And some started to even say things like, do we need Martin Ødegaard? Because has he been holding Arsenal back? No, he's not been holding Arsenal back. He's been an absolute brilliant player for us. I think he ranked highest of all our Ballon d'Or nominees this year, despite obviously these injuries. So he's a hugely necessary player of world-class quality. And when he does return to combine again with Saka, Arsenal will be reaching new levels once again.
Yeah, look, I love him. I think he's unbelievable. And there were times I questioned his what am I trying to say? His GA, like his contributions. And I did, if I'm honest, the first few seasons, I was looking at players like Maddison, and there was other names I was throwing in the hat. Even Bruno being one of them, not because I preferred them, but because I wanted to see him kind of looking at those levels. And boy, the last couple of years, he's managed to do that. And I think we've just shown how important he is by him being missed. That's not taking anything away from Trossard, because I actually think he's had some really good games for us in the middle. But we need him back now. We really do. And I pray that he can get back for after the international break. Look, if he does go and play for Norway, I'm not too fussed by it, because maybe he does need the minutes to get himself fit and stuff. So maybe it might not be a bad thing. I just don't like international football, if I'm honest. And I've got to try and get that out of my head, because it's important, apparently, and we need to be playing these games. But I just, honestly, I'm not a fan of it, mate. And we've been hit by Saka and, of course, Ødegaard injuries as well. Big up to Max. I hope you're well, my bro. Absolute legend, doing everything which is needed for helping me on this channel and just being a great lad. So thank you so much, Max. Absolute hero. Big up to everybody as well. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. We are getting close to 26K. So come on, people. Let's get there together. Tom, before I go into some transfer rumours, which is mad to talk about them now, but it's like when they come up, we talk about them. Preston is the next game. I don't want to look ahead too much to Inter Milan's and Chelsea and Newcastle. I know a lot of fans do want to, and I understand why. But I'm going to say it. I want to win this competition, man. I want to win this League Cup. And a lot of people say that it's an energy drink cup and it's a pointless competition and nobody wants to be in it. And I know you and I have definitely disagreed at times about how serious we should take this competition. Look, I see it as a trophy. I don't think that if you win this trophy, you're one of the best managers in the world, as Ten Hag has proved. But I certainly do think that it's an important one to win when Arsenal, a club the size of us, hasn't won it for 31 years, right? So I look at it now and think that it needs to be taken seriously. However, I don't think we should be playing our absolutely best 11, because at the moment, injuries are key for us. So I've put together something which I wanted to share with you to see if you agree or disagree with, something that I think the team could be and want you to let me know if you think this is something that potentially is a little bit too strong or a little bit too weak, but I'll let you decide. Raya's going to have to be in goal because if I'm honest with you, we don't have Neto because he's cup tied, unless of course he goes with Setford in goal. That could be an option. Right back, he could go with Nichols like he did against Bolton, but I think that we need to respect Preston as being a better opposition. Ben White's the only real other option that we've got there at the moment, in my opinion. Saliba, I think as much as it's crazy to suggest that he'd start this game, I don't see who else starts as right-sided centre-back unless it is Ben White and we play Josh Nichols there. Kivior, I think, will be left-sided centre-back. And then it's either going to be Lewis Skelly or Zinchenko, in my opinion, at left-back that I've put in there. I put Zinchenko for there at the moment. Jorginho, Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri. We could play Zinchenko in the middle of midfield, or he could play one of Marino, but I'm not sure if he will do that. And I've gone with a front three of Sterling, Jesus and Martinelli, because I just think Martinelli needs games times at the moment and needs to get that kind of confidence. Look, let me know your thoughts. Do you think that is crazy too strong? Do you think that's mad? Do you think that's half right, half wrong? What are you telling me, bro?
It's similar to my lineup.
Okay.
I went with Raya, White, Saliba, Kivior, Zinchenko. I went with Jorginho, Nwaneri, but I had Rice in my midfield.
Okay.
And then Sterling, Havertz, and Jesus was my front three.
So you're sticking with Havertz up top?
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy needs a bit of he needs a goal. I know he's had a good run. He scored in 6 consecutive Emirates home games, but I think, it's always good to give your centre forward a confidence, and you can give Martinelli a bit of a rest because obviously I know he's been starting games, but he did come back with that injury from Brazil, so a chance to give him a rest ahead of Newcastle. You've got Jesus, you've got Sterling, you've got Havertz. I think you can use them as a front three. So I think we're pretty similar in terms of kind of level. Maybe I went slightly stronger, which is maybe ironic because obviously you've given this competition a lot more emphasis than I have in the recent times. Yeah, I absolutely want to win competitions. It would be naive or ignorant to just completely dismiss it. I'm not like, the League Cup's never been like a huge thing for me. And I think, it ranks as my lowest priority, as I'm sure it does for the majority of supporters as well. But if you've got a chance, win this and you're in a quarterfinal, so like it's you can get quite far in a competition by playing a few games against, getting a little bit fortunate in the draw, which we've not been of late. I know we've been knocked out by West Ham and Brighton in the last couple of seasons, but you go back seasons before that, it's City, it's Liverpool, it's Spurs that you're being knocked out by. And I think that, even though those games against West Ham and Brighton were disappointing, we rotated and they didn't. We went up against, pretty much their full strength sides in the competition, which we won't be doing. Well, we will be doing against Preston, but it's a different, kettle of fish to play in those teams. So hopefully Arsenal get a result. I think that we should go relatively strong, but rotate players that we need to rotate, rest players we need to rest, and give minutes to players we need to give minutes to. And you can always give Saka some minutes at the end to help him, reintegrate after his injury. So, yeah, I think that we should be taking it, pretty darn seriously.
Mate, if we start Saka, I'll be pulling my hair out.
But damn, we got to take the competition so seriously,
Yeah, I mean, you've got to take it seriously, but you've got to also not be crazy to think that this guy is just going to break soon. Look, if we can't make changes and beat Preston, I'll be disappointed. The only one I disagree with, definitely, out of your starting 11 is Rice. I just think the guy does need a bit of a break. I think we're trying to use him. England as well don't help us because they play him in 90 minutes in every single game as well. But on Declan Rice, I wanted to ask you secondly about this, because if we are going to have to play one of the midfield 8s, I'd rather play Marino. I don't think Rice is an 8, Tom. I think he's a 6. And a lot of people, I know Ken's definitely disagreed. He thinks he's going to be an excellent 8. I think he's already an excellent 6. And he can cover in the 8, don't get me wrong. He can play there for sure. I just think he's so good in the 6. And I think what's kind of made things hard for me with this argument is how good Thomas Partey's been. Because he's been excellent this season. Like I think he's been one of our best players, Tom Partey.
Yeah, without doubt, yeah.
I think so. On field, definitely, if it isn't Raya. So where do you see Rice? Because I think he's a 6. Some people think he's an 8. I've always looked at him, and I'm not comparing him to these players. I'm just comparing him to the positions. I've always looked at him more of a Rodri or a Carrick than a Gerrard or a Lampard. But where do you see him?
Yeah, he's a 6 who can play the 8.
Okay.
I think that, he has played the 8, but I think his best performances for me always come being the anchor and being in that deepest position in the midfield. And I think that's where hopefully he does develop and grow and, establishes himself. Obviously, Partey's contract is up at the end of this season. There's no indication at the moment about, a renewal. There's certainly not been any indications that talks are going on right now, and that could change, but at the moment there isn't. So you'd imagine that that's the way it's going. And with Mourinho, of course, being brought in as well, that's another 8 that you've brought in to play. So you think Rice, Ødegaard, and Mourinho would be probably your best starting midfields 3. Because I think that even though Partey's been great, Rice has had a better season still overall across the whole campaign, because Partey had a bit of a slower start to the season. He's been very good the last couple of months, but I think his first few games there were question marks about his fitness and how he was getting further up and down the pitch and stuff. But Rice, I think, has been very consistent besides the petulant, yellow card decision, however way you look at it, against Brighton. So I think that his best role will be that 6 role, and I think that we need to build our team around him as a 6. And I think you can also, by bringing somebody else into that midfield position, if that's Mourinho, great. You saw his goal scoring abilities at the weekend. He's dangerous from set pieces that are being put in and delivered by Declan Rice. It gives you a different element. It gives you a different, verve that we haven't previously had. So yeah, I think you're right, and I agree with you. His role is 6, and it should be 6.
Absolutely, man. Just lastly on this game, Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly, 2 players that you and I want to see more, 2 players you and I have spoken about actually before this season, saying that they look like the next 2 that are coming through. I agree that we need to take it seriously, but I also believe both these kids deserve games, and I'll tell you why. I've been really impressed with both of them. For one, I actually think Lewis Skelly's been as impressive as Nwaneri for different reasons. I think he's been asked to play different roles. I think he's shown his versatility. I actually think he's very comfortable on the ball, by the way. I know he got kind of caught on the goal, but it is Salah, by the way. It's very difficult. Yeah. But I will say this. I actually do think we're going to be having to use them more, because we've left ourselves short, in my opinion, still in the summer window. And I don't want to get into that. Maybe we'll touch on it in a minute in transfer rumours. But I think we now need to use these 2, Tom. I think Nwaneri needs games. I think Lewis Skelly needs games. Very, very interesting that he's ahead in the pecking order of Kivior and Zinchenko at left back. That's very impressive and very, very interesting as far as Arteta's concerned. Where do you see these 2 going? Do you see them? Let me give you an example. Do you see both of them as a Maitland-Niles and a Joe Willock? Or do you think they could be more of a Bukayo Saka and Smith Rowe type?
Yeah, I mean, the instinct would be the latter 2 right now, because of the talent, because of what we've seen in such a short space of time from them. First impressions are really, really important, and Joe Willock and Iwobi to a lesser extent as well, and Reece Nelson also. These players didn't give me. They gave me that, these guys are quite talented. They might get some minutes, but they're probably not going to make it. And Nketiah, another one, that's going to get sold eventually. They haven't got a long term. But you get these little glimpses of players at the start of their careers, and it's confidence. That's the key trait. It's confidence and it's first touch. They're the 2 things you look for in players at this level. Because the biggest things like that you look at for players that separate Premier League level quality with lower leagues is your first touch. You can have the best finishing ability in the world. You could be a great aerial battler. You could be a great defender. You could have fantastic speed on you. You could have great, frame and muscular ability on the ball. If you don't have a good first touch, you're never going to make it at the top level. And I know there are some players that, we talk about their touch like Lukaku and stuff, but it's more in smaller, clippable moments that they have those mistakes in them. But still, more often than not, the first touch is the most key element. And you can see that when you combine it with confidence, which is what both Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly have. They're happy to take the ball. They're happy to turn into traffic. They're not always playing a safe ball backwards. I always like to look at substitute performances of kids for Arsenal when you see them given the ball in a tight space. Do they look to go forwards? They might still go past backwards, but do they look first to go forwards? Because that's what you should always be teaching the young players, is look to go forwards, look to make something happen. Don't pick the safe ball. That's what I did when I got called up for the school team. I always passed the ball backwards because I didn't have the confidence to take the ball forwards. You should always be looking to try and go to do something with the ball if you've got the ability and the confidence to go with it. So both of them need to get minutes. Both of them need to start more games. The only reason I've not got Lewis Skelly starting for me in this one is only because I want to give some minutes to Zinchenko, and I feel like I need another starting figure in the midfield if Jorginho's going to start, and that would be Rice. But Lewis Skelly would definitely be coming on, say, at half time for a Zinchenko and getting some, another half of football. I think that's really, really important.
Listen, I agree with you both. I feel like if I had to choose one to go to the Saka levels, it would be Wanyeri, and one to go to maybe a Reece Nelson, Maitland-Niles, Willett level, it would be Lewis Skelly. But I look at Lewis Skelly, and there's just an confidence that oozes in his play. And I like that. They both look fearless. They both look ready. Apparently, from what Arteta said, they're both absolutely like head over heels to be part of the first team, and they're really relishing the chance. So it's great to see. And I expect both of them to play against Preston on Wednesday night. So I'm looking forward to seeing both of their performances. Just be respectful in the chat. I don't know what's been going on, but you will get kicked out if people are being ridiculous. So let's just keep it civil, man. Arsenal, we all want them to win, right? Let's just leave it there. Look, Tom, before we come to a close, bro, I want to talk about some transfer rumours. Now, today, I don't know how true these are. I've not got any ITKs. You've definitely got more knowledge than me in terms of what's potentially reliable and unreliable. But I woke up this morning to rumours of Brian Mbuemo, who I've always rated. I've always liked him at Brentford. I always think he's a definite player that teams will be looking at. I know Spurs were interested. I think Liverpool at one stage were interested for cover for Salah. And Arsenal today have been rumoured with being interested. Football Insider suggests that we may want to look at the Saka position. Now, I saw some rumours a couple of days ago that said that Arteta's already given up on Sterling as being bought. I don't really know how much to believe about that because there's only about 9 games in, but they're already linking us with more wingers, mate. Look, I think we need somebody, that's for sure. If it's not going to be Sterling at the end of the season, which I don't think it will be, because I don't think we'll buy him, then Brian Mbuemo would be an absolutely fantastic shout. He's at a good age. He's Premier League proven. He's been phenomenal for Brentford. Do you see this coming to fruition, bro?
I hope so. I think he'd be a really good signing. He can play centre forward, but he can also play on the right. He's left-footed. This is the challenge, because Arsenal certainly need to find the players that are going to give them the depth to Ødegaard and to Saka. The Ødegaard one is particularly challenging because you don't want to also block the pathway of Nwaneri, so you need to find a versatile figure who can play in other positions as well, so you don't block that route for Nwaneri. But Saka's role definitely needs to be, supported by somebody. But it's incredibly challenging to do that because you've got to find someone who's of the requisite quality, which Sterling isn't. The reason why Sterling was signed on deadline day is because we absolutely had to bring somebody in, and he was there, and he's okay. He's nothing more than just an okay player. He's going to give you something. He scored against Bolton. He'll give you depth. He'll give you, a sub performance. He's not going to score you 10 goals. He's just not. It's not going to happen. So he was brought in because we had to do it, and we found it very difficult to find a player in the market available that wanted to be an understudy to Saka. But you look at Trossard and that signing, I think we need to look at trying to make that type of deal. And Mbuemo sticks out to me as a similar type of Trossard type signing for the right, and I think it would be a really good piece of business by Arsenal. He's a very accomplished player. We've got a good relationship with Brentford. It might be a little bit spenny, similar to Trossard, maybe 30 million quid, but I think that's definitely worth it. 100% worth it.
I do.
And I think Dan, your sound's gone. Or my sound's gone. I'm not sure. It could be me.
No, it might be me. Can you hear me or not? No,
it's you.
Can't hear
it's
me?
Not me. I can't hear you. I don't know why. Just Dan's sorting that out while he gets his. I suppose we can take some comments while Dan's sorting his audio out. G says Victor G will go Man United. He's Amarim's player. Of course, Victor Gyökeres has been a player that's been linked to Arsenal. One I'm sure that Dan might have been asking about, which is certainly something that I know a lot of fans have wanted. And Gyökeres is certainly someone who can. Oh, apparently it's me, Dan. Apparently they can hear you. That's strange. I did a test on my audio, and I could hear it through my speakers. I've taken over a hosting spot. What a hijack. And he's unplugged it now. Once you've got your audio back and you're speaking, I'll hop out and come back in. Must be me.
Apparently you can hear us both. Can you hear me or not?
I can't hear you, but I'll pop out and come back.
Okay. Can you put a thumbs up if you can hear me? Because I'm well confused now. I don't know if it's Tom's mic. I mean, I could hear him fine. We can hear you. Oh, okay. So you can hear me. Working fine. Sounds fine to us. Don't know what's going on. Maybe it was something that on Tom's side. But look, Brian Mbuemo, let's talk about him very quickly before Tom jumps back on. I personally do believe there's a real opportunity to go and get somebody like that. He's only young as well. He's not actually as old as what you might think. He's definitely he's in his early 20s. I think he's 23, 24, which I think is a really good, could be a really good signing. So I think we should be all over this if there is a chance. A lot of people are saying they can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Hey.
Yeah, I can. How so weird? It just stopped.
That's bizarre.
And when it's only 2 people, it's impossible to know, like, who's got the problem.
No, exactly. But yeah, I can hear you, so I don't understand what that was all about. But there we go. As long as you can hear me, mate, that's the main thing. Yeah, look, there's quite a few reports suggesting BBC are reporting it, saying that Football Insider are talking about it, 365. Caught offside. Look, some of those are extremely unreliable sources, in my opinion, but everyone's different. But look, I think it'd be a phenomenal signing to go for somebody like that, and I think that it's going to be difficult to get somebody who's going to be happy to come and sit on the bench, because when you've got a Bukayo Saka, we're in a bit of a Harry Kane and Tottenham situation where if you sign someone, they know they're going to be sitting on the bench. They know they're not going to be guaranteed first team football. Now, a player like Brian Mbuemo might be happy with that because I know he's playing first team football, but it is at Brentford. No disrespect to Brentford, who I think are doing very well this season and have a great manager, but he might be looking at Champions League football and thinking, do you know what, with all the games and all the format happening, Arsenal are going to be expected to play a ridiculous amount of games and I'm definitely going to get some playing time. So I think it would be a really good signing, Tom. I will say this: Kudus and Nico Williams are 2 players that are being mentioned not just in today's chat, but also over the summer and January. Kind of people are praying. I know that Kudus has a potential release clause, but I don't think that's until the summer, around about 80 million. And Nico Williams, we know, has a release clause around about 49 million pounds. But there's rumours are that he's suggested on staying in Spain. Out of those 3, who would you want, and who do you think would be most likely for a January or summer move to Arsenal?
Oh, I'd love Kudus to come to Arsenal. He also fulfills the idea of playing multiple positions because he can play left, he can play right, he can play as an attacking midfielder, he can play as a false 9, centre forward type if you want him to. I think that'd be a brilliant piece of business by Arsenal. I wanted him when he was at Ajax, and we're speaking about him when he was at Ajax. And it was a shame that Arsenal's kind of, when he moved to West Ham, the money kind of ran out during that window. We had a really big summer with Rice and Timber and Raya and Havertz as well, and we just couldn't. I mean, we brought Raya in on loan, didn't we? Because we had those financial restrictions, which meant we couldn't sign him. So, a 40 million pound deal for Kudus at the time was just sadly not feasible. And now he's gone to West Ham. He's incredibly more expensive. So we need to make sure that we're looking at, a situation where we're trying to sign Premier League proven talent, and he's absolutely that. So I would be going for that. Yeah.
Yeah, big up, man. I think your mic might be a little bit quiet, or it might not be switched on. I think people have noticed it. You do sound a little bit quieter, but we'll see. Yeah, tech, mate. Say that again. Go on.
Is that better? Yeah. It was coming through the laptop. That's why.
Oh, okay. I could hear you still, but it was like it wasn't as loud as it was before. Yeah, no. Listen, I'm a Kudus fan. I think he's an absolute baller. I don't think he's happy at West Ham. If I'm honest with you, why would you be? It looks absolutely dreadful over there at the moment. And I know that there's a release clause of around about 80, which I think would be steep. But I also do think that if he's going to come in and take us to the next level, then we need to be looking at that sort of opportunity. Nico Williams, I think he's a star. I think he looks to be electric and light up. I think he would light up the Premier League. Whether we can tempt him, because I don't think it's about being able to afford him. I think it's about actually getting him over to England.
Best starts this season either, to be fair.
Has he not? I don't.
He's only got 1 goal in 9 appearances and 1 assist. He's had a couple of injury issues as well, and I don't really know how Athletic have got on. I think they've been, all right, but yeah, I don't think he's had the best of starts. So, and he seems to have his heart set on Barca as well, from the sounds of it.
Well, listen, out of the 3. Mbuemo's definitely had the best start. Let me tell you that. So maybe that's why we're linked with him. Okay, let's move to the big position that I think for the 6-7 years we've done content together now, it must be easily that. I've been crying out for a striker at Arsenal for probably most of them 6-7 years. My number 1 is Alexander Isak. My number 2 is Victor Gyökeres. I must say, Isak has, albeit I thought he missed pretty much a sitter the other day against Chelsea, but he did score. I'm a big fan, bro. I'm a big fan. But he is injured a lot. And if we are going to be going for him, he's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. Now, Victor Gyökeres would cost 100 million euros as well. I think it's about 84 million pounds or something that his release clause is. A lot of rumours on Sporting Lisbon, which I'll ask you before we close, in relation to Amorim. And also a lot of rumours linking him with Manchester City because Hugo Viana is over at Manchester City now. So I don't know where you're at here, but I want to ask you this. In January, will Arsenal lay down that sort of money for a striker?
I'd be shocked. I'd be
Yeah, so would
utterly
I.
and entirely shocked if they did. I'd absolutely love them to. You know, I'm not going to sit here and explain away why they shouldn't. Obviously with PSR, the new cycle doesn't begin until July of next year. So that might be something that's taken into consideration, because there was a lot of work done, obviously, in the summer to kind of give it a net zero, so they would be very well prepared for 2025. But if you're in a position where you can land one of the world's best strikers, and if that's available, absolutely they should go and do it. Like Gyökeres, there was rumours going around this morning about he could go for 60-70 million euros in the summer rather than his release clause, which is around 50-60 million pounds, which would be a steal in this day and age. Either of those two would be great. I agree with you. Isak would be probably my number one at the moment because of that Premier League experience and the suitability, and knowing he's competed at that level for a couple of seasons now. Gyökeres is slightly riskier because he's been playing in Portugal for their most dominant club, but has been doing decent at European level. Has been scoring for Sweden as well, not just for Sporting. So that bodes well too. If Arsenal land either of those two strikers in the summer, I think that'd be great. If they landed them in January, that would be very impressive. And I don't think it's necessarily too bad either for Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz is an incredibly versatile player who can play in other positions as well. You want to have competitive options. You want to be able to you can even play them together. Arteta has used Trossard not as a 10, really. Trossard's been playing as kind of a second striker alongside Havertz, which I've always said I thought Havertz's best position has always been second striker. That's not 10. That's not attacking midfield. That's him playing with another centre forward, in tandem. And I think that is potentially where Havertz would unlock the most of his abilities, because playing him as a single out-and-out centre forward is good because it gets him into the box, which I think is where he's obviously most dangerous. But I think if you could combine him with somebody, what you get is you get Havertz's collaborative qualities shining, but also his threat that he has in the box as well. So I think that if you can find a way of building a squad with a two-striker system that incorporates Havertz with an Isak or with a Gyökeres, the idea of crosses going into the box, corners, set pieces going into the box, and having Havertz and Gyökeres and Moreno and Saliba and Gabriel, that's incredibly threatening. So, yeah, I'd love to see it happen, but I'd be very surprised if it happened in January.
I'll be surprised if it happened in January. I think we need to, and I'd love it to happen. And I'm talking about either of them, by the way. I totally agree on the Havertz point. A lot of people think that we need to look at a striker because Havertz is rubbish. That's just not the case. I know my mum thinks he is, but
Donna, what's that about?
I know she's not a fan, mate. She's not a fan. She thinks he's all right as a squad player, but not a starter, which is fine. Look, I think Havertz could be a massive contributor still, even if we bought a striker, bruv. I think they can play up top with him, like you've suggested. I think he could be one of the players that comes off on the bench and gives a contribution. I also think there's games that we should start Havertz, even if we do go and buy a striker, because you do need a squad, right? But we need that other striker. I'm not sure Jesus and Sterling are going to be Arsenal players come the summer. I don't feel like they're going to be the future. I feel like we need an Isak or a Gyökeres. I've been very impressed with Victor Gyökeres for at least 3 seasons now. I was really impressed with him at Coventry, but I must say I didn't want him at Arsenal. I thought maybe he could go to a club like a West Ham or maybe a Premier League side that's fighting around in Brentford or Brighton.
He
sort
came
of way.
through Brighton, didn't he? He
Did come from Brighton. Yeah, he did come from Brighton. And then when he was at Sporting Lisbon, I was told he's doing really well over there. And I thought, oh, brilliant. I had no idea until I looked at his numbers quite how well he was doing. And I understand and appreciate that there's players that come from Portugal leagues like Darwin Núñez that don't light up the league. But we have seen players like Cristiano Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes come from Portugal and absolutely light up the Premier League as well. Maybe not so much Bruno, but certainly when he first came, he did. Look, I think it'd be a phenomenal sign for anybody. I still do believe that. The one thing that does make me believe he would do well in the Premier League, Tom, is his physical attributes and the fact that he's doing it in Europe now as well. He's done it in the Europa League, but he's also now doing it in the Champions League. So I'm a big fan of what I've seen so far from Victor Gyökeres, and I think it would be a good signing for Arsenal and somebody. There's rumours of Man City. I mean, if they get him, it would just be horrible to have him and Haaland up top. That's just a madness. Isak, I think the injuries is probably a big concern for a lot of people, and I can understand why. I do think he's the Premier League proven one, and I do think that it'd be a good signing. if it is going to happen for either of those, I just don't see them going in January. The only thing is with Gyökeres is he's got a release clause. So it could, if Sporting Lisbon were happy to, and they said, look, you want to go, we can't do much to keep you because they've released the clause, then it's up to Gyökeres. But I do think both of them are probably going to stay put for now, and then it will be a summer move if so. So that's my thoughts on both of those. Let's come to a close with some super chats and a question or two. We've got Suj, who says, I won't talk about the refs because it's the common topic across all fan channels. I will say this. They've been consistently bad. That is absolutely facts. That's not even a question. That's just a true factual statement. This one comes in, though, from Connor. He says, you think Isak could be more likely to come to us if Newcastle continue to have a poor season and try to cash out before their form lowers his value? I'll say this. I think he'll go if they don't get Champions League football, Tom.
Yeah, it's not. It wouldn't be about cashing in. It'd be more about Isak, I think, pushing for a move than Newcastle wanted. Newcastle won't be inclined to sell even if they weren't to get. They don't need money. They've got very rich owners. I know there's PSR stuff to question, but they'd still be inclined to try and keep hold of Isak. So yeah, I think it's more about him pushing than Newcastle being open to it.
Yeah, look, I think Newcastle will want to keep him at all costs, but if he's stalling on a new contract and he says, look, I'll sign, but I want a release clause in it, that means he's going to be going if they don't get European football or Champions League football. And let's be real, he's good enough to be playing in the Champions League, Isak. He is. So, him, Bruno, Tonali, they've got some really good players, Newcastle. And I fancied them this season, Tom, to go one game a week to try and get top four, but they're just not playing well enough. They're just really not. So I don't see that happening anymore, if I'm honest, and I've changed my predictions. Look, big up to every single one of you that's been tuned in. Make sure you do me a favor and make sure you're following the Gooner Talk TV. You are now on the road to 70k, which is incredible what you're doing over there, Tom. Every single morning, Arsenal news, that is the place to be from 8 a.m. onwards. Make sure you've liked and subscribed to this one. We are not far at all off of 26k, so I'd love to be able to hit that today. That will be great. Tonight, I've got another show at 8 p.m. It'll be myself, it'll be a gal, it'll be Grandon, it'll be Kenny Ken, and a couple of others that are jumping on for Arsenal Roundabout to talk all things Arsenal. Looking at tomorrow night's game. Sorry. It's tomorrow night's game, isn't it? And the weekend as well against Newcastle. Tom, absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for joining me, man. It's always great to talk football with you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, Dan. Happy to jump on and make sure you subscribe and help Dan get to that 26k.
Big up, man. Thank you so much. And thank you to every single one of you. Make sure you check out manscaped.com as well. Link is in the pinned comments or, of course, into the description. All you've got to do is follow that link, select the beard hedger, and you'll get 20% off for Christmas. Take it easy, people. We're out of here.
Yes, people, Manscaped is back. But this time, it's not for below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped brings to you the beard hedger, the best product on the market when it comes to beard trimmers. The beard hedger is unique due to its number of radiant settings. As someone who's purchased this, I won't turn to any other beard trimmer. Check it out for yourself at manscaped.com. And don't forget to use code FTM20 to get 20% off of this product.